Welcome back to Jeff Desk, where we push past the noise, the distractions, and the carefully crafted statements to deliver the clear, straightforward facts our country truly requires in this moment. At this hour, the entire globe is on edge, while a dangerous miscalculation in the Middle East spins further into chaos. The Trump administration took a bold risk with Iran, betting on a swift and overwhelming outcome. Yet Tehran has firmly refused any pause in the fighting unless the terms come directly from their side. This goes far beyond routine diplomacy. This single development holds the power to alter America's national defense, our financial stability, and the safety of our men and women in uniform for a long time ahead. From the outset, those inside the Trump White House built their strategy around an unusually short expected duration for the clash. Key figures seemed certain that operations targeting Iran would conclude rapidly, likely in no more than 4 or 5 days. That belief guided the initial preparations and the way information was shared publicly. The plan centered on one major step: the precise removal of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The logic held that eliminating this central figure would throw the whole Iranian system into confusion. Deprived of its top religious and governing voice, the leadership in Tehran would quickly look for a way to stop the violence. A truce would emerge naturally, letting the United States pull back, claim a clear victory, and keep the situation from growing into a larger regional war. That same line of thought shaped how the entire situation was presented early on. Discussions in briefings and private meetings described the action as more of a focused operation than a lengthy battle. The aim involved quickly cutting off the head of the leadership, then moving straight to lowering tensions. Those who supported this approach highlighted what they saw as the Iranian system's weakness after so many years under Khamenei. They claimed his control over the armed forces, the Revolutionary Guard, and important religious bodies was so strong that losing him would leave a gap impossible to fill right away. In the resulting disorder, more practical voices inside Iran could step up and push for talks to limit further losses. The White House appeared convinced this result was within reach, not merely a chance, but something very likely to happen. This level of certainty affected decisions about supplies and military positioning. Weapons reserves and the placement of forces were set up for a brief, powerful push instead of a long fight. Early public comments carried that same hopeful tone, focusing on accuracy and narrow objectives. There was almost no sign of readiness for drawn-out back-and-forth fighting, stretched logistics, or rising losses stretching across weeks and months. The whole strategy depended on the idea that striking hard at the highest level would destroy the opponent's determination to continue. Those who raised doubts about this view reportedly met resistance. Reports that stressed Iran's strong institutions, the deep loyalty within the Revolutionary Guard, and the strong chance of a firm replacement taking charge seemed to get downplayed or set aside. The conviction remained that taking out Khamenei would cause an immediate change, almost as simple as turning something on or off. In reality, this thinking failed to grasp how deeply rooted the commitment to the system runs inside Iran. Although the supreme leader holds a crucial position, he rests on top of multiple layers of authority built to survive changes at the top. Looking at the Islamic Republic's past, the killing or natural passing of major leaders has seldom produced instant surrender. More often, it unites the remaining groups behind stories of standing firm and honoring sacrifice. The White House strategy did not account for the way such a move could strengthen determination instead of weakening it. Hopes for a fast truce overlooked how Iran's choices would be driven by the need to show resolve at home, not appear vulnerable. So that 4 to 5 day window looked more like an optimistic guess than a solid evaluation. Once events moved in a different direction, the difference between what was expected and what actually unfolded stood out sharply. What had been presented inside as a tightly managed high-reward effort started showing serious weaknesses right from the opening moves. Tehran has firmly turned away the ceasefire offer put forward by Trump, making it clear that any break in the fighting will happen only according to their own conditions. After the United States sent signals, both quietly through private channels and more openly, suggesting a pause, Iran's response arrived quickly and left no room for misunderstanding. The country's leaders rejected it using direct and unyielding words. They stated plainly that military operations would not stop unless the arrangement matched Iran's requirements completely. This stand mattered deeply because it revealed more than a simple no. It showed a broader approach to the situation. Iran placed itself in the position of setting the rhythm and the rules for any possible reduction in fighting, instead of going along with what Washington suggested. The announcement came almost right away after word spread that the U.S. was looking for an off-ramp to ease the conflict. Speaking through official media and Revolutionary Guard outlets, Iranian representatives stressed independence and the right to decide their own course. They portrayed the U.S. suggestion as an effort to hold on to advantages gained from the first attacks, while brushing aside the harm done to Iranian people and assets. By demanding that any truce follow their guidelines, Tehran turned the story around. From their perspective, the side that started things could not just call for a break whenever it suited them. This position strengthened Iran's overall message of standing strong and holding firm even against greater military power. Practical reasons stood behind the open refusal as well. Agreeing to a ceasefire on American terms right then would have looked like giving in, particularly after the very public loss of the supreme leader. Inside Iran, large groups had already taken to the streets, calling for a display of power and payback. Stopping too soon risked damaging the new leadership's standing and giving critics at home more room to challenge them. Outside the country, partners like Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other connected groups were paying close attention. Giving ground early could have hurt the standing of what is often called the axis of resistance. By saying no without hesitation, Iran kept its options open to keep applying pressure through various means, including missile launches and actions by allied forces. The exact words chosen for the rejection carried importance. Iranian communications stayed away from soft or unclear diplomatic phrasing, instead making it plain that only Tehran would decide when, how broad, and under what rules any stoppage would occur. That made it clear Iran still held the upper hand in timing and felt no rush to end things while their counterattacks kept causing damage. It also pointed out the uneven nature of the struggle. The United States wanted a fast way out to reduce its risks, whereas Iran seemed ready to take hits in order to drag things out and make American participation more expensive. The strong, clear refusal drew notice from leaders across the region and around the world, making it plain that Iran would not give way to outside demands in these early days. This turn of events pushed Washington to rethink its position. An exit that could preserve appearances now seemed much harder to achieve. The administration had to confront the fact that its early ideas about having strong influence were off base. Iran's stance showed that any discussions moving forward, if they happen, would begin with Tehran holding the stronger position, not following Washington's lead. The refusal added more doubt about where the conflict might head next and made clear the dangers of counting on one big action to compel agreement. The United States now confronts real worries about exhausting vital weapons supplies should the fighting with Iran stretch on for an extended period. Military leaders in America are dealing with a serious weakness: the danger of using up essential stockpiles of munitions if this confrontation lasts past the starting phase. Initial reviews counted on a short fight, so supplies of accurate guided weapons, defensive interceptors, and other advanced equipment were not stocked for a long haul. A drawn-out conflict would use far more of these items, particularly when facing Iran's supply of ballistic missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles. Information suggests that some categories of weapons, those needed for distant attacks or protecting positions, are already under stress after only a few days of heavy use. Getting fresh supplies takes time because American manufacturers have limits on how fast they can increase production of these specialized items. Support from partner nations remains unclear, and worldwide shortages tied to earlier wars add extra strain. Lacking enough backup stocks, U.S. forces might have to slow their pace, turn to less capable options, or leave openings that put service members and equipment at greater risk in the area. This shortage of munitions casts doubt on whether America can keep up steady operations over many months without major changes or breaks. So far, 3 American service members have lost their lives, with 5 others badly injured, mostly due to Iranian ballistic missiles and drones aimed at bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. Losses for U.S. personnel have built up quickly in the conflict's first days. Central Command has verified that 3 members were killed and 5 received serious injuries. These casualties come mainly from Iran's counterattacks involving ballistic missiles and attacking drones. The strikes hit military sites in Bahrain, Kuwait, and the UAE, locations where American forces help carry out regional missions. Available intelligence shows these weapons broke through defenses at some locations, leading to more destruction and harm than first reported officially. Certain bases saw greater building damage and effects on people than early statements indicated. The strikes demonstrate Iran's ability to reach and hit scattered U.S. positions directly. With more attacks expected, experts anticipate the number of casualties will continue climbing, which heightens the need for serious discussion about protecting forces and choosing the right course in exposed areas. Iran's President Pezeshkian has stated that temporary leadership is now running the country and pledged to keep hitting enemy positions with complete force. Appearing on national television after the Supreme Leader's passing, President Masoud Pezeshkian spoke to the Iranian people. He confirmed he remains active and in charge, and he announced the formation of an interim council now holding full legal power over the Islamic Republic. Pezeshkian emphasized that the nation would stay true to its established direction, but with stronger resolve than before. He said the military continues to take apart opposing sites and promised steady, intense actions against enemy locations. His delivery projected firmness and togetherness, pushing back against any suggestion of giving ground or showing frailty. The address worked to calm people at home while sending a message of enduring capability to the rest of the world, making it known that Iran's governing system stays solid and functioning even after losing its top figure. The IRGC has declared that the 7th and 8th stages of Operation True Promise are in progress, hitting American bases throughout the region. In a new release, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps stated that phases 7 and 8 of Operation True Promise continue forward. These involve organized waves of missiles and drones aimed at various U.S. military sites across the Middle East. The Guard highlighted one key achievement, fully putting out of action Kuwait's Ali al-Salem Air Base, an important American facility. They claimed a total of 560 U.S. casualties, combining killed and injured, although official U.S. numbers from Central Command were considerably lower. The statement made clear Iran's plan to keep up powerful responses, widening the range of targets to show their reach and strength. Publicizing these active efforts helped strengthen the Guard's story of successful pushback and determination not to yield under strain. Traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has stopped completely as Iran strikes oil and LNG carriers nearby, leading to huge backups of ships. The Strait of Hormuz, that tight passage so vital for the world's energy, has basically shut down during this rising conflict. Every day, about 20 to 25% of global seaborne oil and a large portion of liquefied natural gas move through there. Iran has started hitting oil tankers and other merchant ships in and around the strait with missiles and drones. Those strikes have left vessels either holding position in open sea or sitting still, building up major backups on the Persian Gulf side and toward the Gulf of Oman. Tracking information shows more than 150 tankers, crude oil carriers and LNG ships included, anchored outside the strait's entrance with many others waiting on the far side. The interruption ties straight back to U.S. and Israeli actions against Iran, leading Tehran to block energy routes as a way to gain advantage. This kind of chokehold brings immediate threats of sharp rises in world oil prices, shortages of supply, and serious economic strain on countries that rely heavily on energy imports. Huge gatherings in Iran and in allied places like Yemen are openly calling for payback over Khamenei's death, with strong anti-American slogans. In the wake of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's death, enormous protests have broken out in cities across Iran and in supporting areas. Thousands fill public squares and main streets in Iran, shouting phrases like "Death to America" and demanding action against the United States. These events mix mourning with shows of solidarity and resistance. Comparable crowds have formed in Yemen, where Houthi backers and related groups stand together, showing the wider reach the late leader had in the area. The focus of these demonstrations stays on seeking justice, which bolsters tougher positions inside Iran and among its connected groups. This level of public involvement makes any fast reduction in tensions more difficult, since ordinary people are pressing the current leaders to hold a strong line instead of looking for agreement. The size and intensity of these rallies show how removing Khamenei has stirred up energy and unity among parts of the population and its partners, rather than leaving them discouraged. Incidents against American embassies and consulates in the Middle East are growing more frequent, and intelligence reports warn about the chance of Iranian sleeper cells or terrorist actions being set in motion. Since the conflict started, attacks on U.S. diplomatic buildings throughout the Middle East have increased sharply. Demonstrations have turned violent at several embassies and consulates, with groups breaking through security lines and causing destruction, including in Karachi, Pakistan, where security forces fired shots, resulting in deaths among protesters. Other locations have seen similar trouble, driven by anger over America's role in the Supreme Leader's death. Intelligence services in the West, along with those in the United States, have raised serious alerts about the possibility that Iran could activate sleeping networks or use proxies to launch terrorist strikes. These warnings cover potential actions in the region and farther away, aimed at American people, facilities, or unprotected civilian targets. The mix of visible assaults on diplomatic sites and hidden terrorism threats has led many posts to increase protections, limit travel, and get ready for quick departures should dangers become real. President Trump, along with backing Republicans, minimized the setbacks in the absence of formal congressional approval, whereas opponents described the action as unlawful, poorly prepared, and harmful to U.S. forces and the nation's economy. President Trump and his Republican supporters have steadily played down the difficulties in the conflict, presenting losses and Iran's refusal of truce proposals as small obstacles on the road to winning. Trump has spoken of fast advances and remarkable achievements, hinting that Iran will soon handle its own path forward while brushing off requests for clearer strategies. Supporters such as Senators Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton have stood by the decisions, saying no detailed aftermath plan or official congressional approval for war is required, since the purpose is ending Iran's backing of terrorism without long U.S. responsibility afterward. They view public comments on social platforms as enough for keeping people informed. On the other side, Democratic voices like Senator Chris Murphy call the whole effort unconstitutional for moving ahead without Congress's say-so, describing it as careless, badly thought out, and damaging to the economy by pulling attention from home front needs. They warn that it puts American lives at risk in an avoidable mess, with growing military deaths highlighting the real human price and strategic mistakes of a campaign launched without proper authorization and no clear end. From the White House's error in expecting a 4-day conflict to Iran's strong dismissal of the ceasefire and determination to set their own rules, from our armed forces facing dangerous shortages in key weapons to the painful reality of 3 American service members killed and 5 more gravely hurt. From President Pezeshkian's firm commitment to keep resisting and the IRGC carrying out its 7th and 8th rounds of attacks, to the total closure of the Strait of Hormuz, enormous crowds across Iran and Yemen demanding vengeance, rising violence at U.S. diplomatic posts, and alarming reports of possible sleeper cells activating, all of these elements together show clearly how deeply flawed the starting plan really was. Here at home, the split remains just as deep. One group treats the suffering and disorder as unimportant, while the other labels it unlawful, unprepared, and catastrophic. The toll in lives, money, and national position keeps rising, and ordinary Americans will bear the burden if stronger, clearer leadership fails to emerge. They warn that it puts American lives at risk in an avoidable mess, with growing military deaths highlighting the real human price and strategic mistakes of a campaign launched without proper authorization and no clear end. If this update struck a chord and made things clearer for you, please subscribe to Jeff Desk right now. Enable notifications so you never miss an important update. Leave just one word in the comments. Truth, if you'd like to see more direct reports of this kind. I read them all. Until next time, take care and stay aware.